Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a historical power grab that is just absolutely mind-blowing. We're looking at how Macedonia, which really started out as this rugged, peripheral northern kingdom, managed to completely master the sophisticated, fiercely independent Greek world. You can think of it as the ancient equivalent of a brilliantly executed corporate hostile takeover. It didn't happen by accident, and it for sure didn't happen overnight. It was the result of a meticulously calculated playbook, a strategy that wove together cultural assimilation, really cunning diplomacy, and, when push came to shove, devastating military force. Okay, let's dive right in. When you hear Macedonian supremacy, you probably picture this guy, Alexander the Great. And yeah, his conquests are legendary. But he didn't build the launchpad he used to conquer the known world. To really understand how Macedonia achieved absolute dominance, we actually have to rewind to his father, King Philip II, and the generations of kings before him. They were the architects who laid all the groundwork for the empire Alexander would eventually rule. So here is our strategic map for today. First, borrowing Greek culture. Second, the complex Greek neighborhood. Third, Philip II's wars and diplomacy. And fourth, founding the League of Corinth. All right, starting with part 1, borrowing Greek culture. Way before Macedonia started flexing its military muscles down south, they used, well, kind of a brilliant Trojan horse strategy. They wanted into the exclusive Greek cultural club. Bad. They were importing soft power long before they ever asserted hard power. I mean, look at this track record. Back in the 5th century, King Alexander I literally proved he had the right to compete in the Olympic Games, which was a huge symbolic win. Later on, King Archelaus is bringing elite Greek playwrights straight to his court. And then Philip II goes and hires the Greek philosopher Aristotle to tutor his kid Alexander. They're basically building these magnificent Greek-style theaters right in their own backyard, like the one at their ancient capital of Aigai, just to soak up that culture. And just to show you how deeply intertwined things got, the legendary Athenian poet Euripides actually moved up to Macedonia at the invitation of King Archelaus. It was there that he wrote his famous tragedy, the Bacchae. Scholars actually think Euripides was directly inspired by the wild local rituals he saw right there in the Macedonian wilderness. It's kind of like, imagine Shakespeare moving to a rowdy frat house to write a masterpiece. Just this perfect collision of Greek artistic form capturing raw Macedonian energy. And this spot perfectly captures that cultural mashup. This is the Nymphaeum at Mysa. It's the literal place where Greek philosophy collided with Macedonian royalty. This is the very site where Aristotle taught the young Alexander the Great. By bringing in the greatest mind in Greece to train his heir, Philip wasn't just getting his son a good education, he was cementing this massive cultural bridge. Which brings us to part 2, the complex Greek neighborhood. Okay, put yourself in Macedonia's shoes for a second. You're up north, looking down at the neighboring Greek city-states. What do you see? Total chaos. You've got the traditional heavyweights, Athens, Sparta, Thebes, just locked in these continuous, totally exhausting wars with each other. They're fiercely independent, sure, but internally, completely fractured. Meanwhile, up north, Macedonia is playing a completely different game. They're centralizing their government, aggressively expanding their territory, and building this highly trained, unified military machine. It's literally a giant coming together while Greece remained a collection of squabbling states. But here's the core geopolitical tension of the whole era, and scholar E. Badian really hits the nail on the head here. Even though the Macedonians are building Greek theaters and hiring Greek tutors, the proper Greeks, they still looked down on them as total outsiders, sometimes even as barbarians. And honestly, the Macedonians knew they were a distinct people with their own traditions anyway. So you have this incredibly complex, somewhat resentful rivalry. The Greeks had all the prestige, but Macedonia was rapidly acquiring all the power.
Let's move to part 3, Philip II's wars and diplomacy.
Enter Philip II. He looks at his divided neighbors and just exploits it perfectly. He beat the Greeks at their own game using both the pen and the sword. I mean, understanding their complex treaties was just as crucial to his success as his army's phalanx. He manages to secure a seat on the Amphictyonic League of Delphi, which was a massively important religious and political body in central Greece. He negotiates this tricky treaty called the Peace of Philocrates with Athens. He strategically grabs vital mineral wealth at Cronides, which he naturally renames Philippi, and he's constantly using political marriages to lock in alliances. The guy was an absolute master of statecraft. But diplomacy only gets you so far. All this simmering tension between a rising Macedonia and those stubbornly independent Greek states finally reaches a boiling point. And that brings us to the pivotal year, 338 BC. The moment we're talking stops, an overwhelming, world-altering force takes over. Summer of 338 BC, out on the plains of Boeotia, we get the ultimate showdown, the Battle of Chaeronea. We're talking 30 to 35,000 soldiers on each side, a truly massive clash. Philip is commanding the right wing of the army, and his brilliant young son, Alexander, is leading the cavalry on the left. And together, they just absolutely crush the combined forces of Athens and Thebes. In literally one afternoon, centuries of Greek independence essentially vanish. It was a total, decisive Macedonian victory. And that leads us to our final chapter, Part 4, Founding the League of Corinth. Now, winning a war is one thing, but winning the peace, that's the real trick. Instead of just brutally occupying Greece, Philip sets up a completely new system, the League of Corinth. So the crucial point is how brilliantly he structured this. First, he draws strict, recognized borders to finally put an end to all those intercity wars. Second, he guarantees their internal autonomy and protects their local constitutions so they still feel free. Third, he creates a common council of delegates to enforce this new shared peace. And fourth, the absolute masterstroke. The council appoints Philip himself as hegemon. So, what does hegemon actually mean? It means he is the supreme military commander of this brand new unified force. It was genius. He gives the Greeks the illusion that they're willing participants in this grand alliance, while effectively cementing his absolute control over their combined military might. He took this fractured Greek world, united it, and pointed all of that aggressive energy toward a brand new shared objective, an upcoming retaliatory war against the massive Persian Empire in the east. Which leaves us with this final, really profound question to think about. Macedonia used Greek theater, Greek philosophy, and Greek political structures as the very tools to dominate the Greek people. So, did Philip truly conquer Greece? Or, by embedding all this Hellenic culture so deeply into his own royal court and future empire, did Greek culture ultimately conquer Macedonia? It's a complex duality that completely defined the ancient world, and it's the exact foundation Alexander the Great would soon use to build his unimaginable empire. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it leaves you eager to dig even deeper into antiquity's fascinating playbook.